My name is Todd Fabozzi. I'm with the Capital District Regional Planning Commission and direct the sustainability programs at the Commission. Why we're here and how this workshop came about is that the Regional Planning Commission has received a grant from the New York State Energy and Research Development Authority, NYSERDA, called the Clean Energy Community Program. And this grant is a 3-year program that we are administering through the upstate Northeast Territory. And part of that program, it involves community choice aggregation, which is the subject of our workshop. And how does it dovetail with community choice aggregation? It is a program to assist local governments in becoming designated clean energy communities by achieving 4 out of 10 high-impact actions. And community choice aggregation is one of them. But we know it's also one that's less known, a little bit obscure, and people are wondering all about what this concept means. And even when you just hear the words, it seems contradictory. Community choice, that's a very home rule, New York bottom-up thing. Aggregation, that's a bit regional thing and sounds like it's top-down. So what is this all about? And so we are lucky to have an esteemed panel and several speakers. So we are going to hear from Robyn Reynolds, who is with the Capital District Regional Planning Commission. She is the outreach coordinator for the Clean Energy Community Program, and she's going to talk about the Clean Energy Community Program in a little bit of detail. We're then going to have Kelly Connell, who is the utility analyst with the Office of Clean Energy in the New York State Department of Public Service. And then we are going to have a panel moderated by Sam Kraemer, who is the Excelsior Fellow for Communities and Local Government for NYSERDA. And on that panel, we have Louise Gava, who is the CCA project leader for Municipal Electric and Gas Alliance, MEGA. We have Javier Barrios, who's the managing partner of Good Energy LP. We have Glenn Weinberg, who is the director of Community Energy for Joule's Asset. And we have Jen Metzger, who's the director for Citizens for Local Power. So we have this great panel. We'll have a break after the first 2 speakers. And I just want to thank Joanne Coombs, who teaches at Hudson Valley Community College here and is along with the New York State Solar Energy Society, who has co-sponsored this event. Thanks to the Hudson Valley Audio Visual staff for filming this event. And thank you to Pat Courtney Strong, who's on our team in the Clean Energy Community Program, for helping to organize this event. And so, first up, Robyn Reynolds.
Good morning. Thanks everyone for coming this morning. I know that with the recent inclement weather, there was probably some anxiety over whether or not we were going to still have this event, but luckily the snow cooperated. So thank you so much for coming this morning. We look forward to having a full day of education on community choice aggregation. So don't be afraid to ask questions. We're here to help. We're here to help everyone understand. So firstly, I'll be talking, as Todd noted, about the Clean Energy Communities Program. This is a program that, as Todd mentioned, we at the Capital District Regional Planning Commission are delivering here in the Capital Region and helping our partners in other regions nearby implement in their respective regions, the Mohawk Valley, Mid-Hudson, and North Country regions. It's an exciting program that offers a lot of assistance and incentives for local governments who want to participate. So we think it's a really great program, and we hope that, for those of you who are in the audience that I know who are already kind of working on the program, you still feel motivated to soldier on. And those who might be from communities who haven't participated yet, get an interest after today's session and workshop, and you go back to your local governments and encourage them to participate. Okay, so here we go. So this map represents the different regions across the state. So the program is organized by Regional Economic Development Council boundaries. So each Regional Economic Development Council area, so that includes every area across the state, North Country, as I mentioned, Capital District, Southern Tier, Western New York, has their own unique local assistance coordinator. So I am the coordinator for the Capital Region, but we have partners across the state who are helping local governments in their respective regions. As you may notice, there's a lot of names on the screen. So, if you're not from Western New York or the Southern Tier, you can direct your attention towards the eastern part of the state. But, some of the regions do have extra coordinators helping. So as I mentioned, the Clean Energy Communities Program is an open enrollment program. The deadline, I believe, is September 30th, 2019, but we think that there's probably going to be interest before then, and we hope that the funds will be used before then. So what happens is after a community completes 4 out of 10 high-impact actions, they're able to access up to $250,000 worth of funding. And my next slide will explain a little bit more on how that funding is structured, but there's up to $250,000 available, and that's no cost share funding. So the local government is not on the line, if you will, to put up any money towards a project. So that funding is for a project. It's not just going to be added to the municipal budget, but it's still a very good opportunity and one that's pretty unique in New York State. There's not a lot of programs that do offer cost share free funding, especially for clean energy projects. So we think it's pretty attractive, but we're hoping that a lot of the communities that we're working with find it attractive as well. So this is really a program for all communities. I believe the smallest community that I'm working with has a year-round population of 906 residents. And the largest community that I'm working with has a population of 300,000. So, this is really something that's supposed to be for everyone to participate. So we don't think that, larger or smaller communities have a distinct advantage. All of the high impact actions represent choices that are really best practices across the state. So even though there's money available, and that's certainly an attractive kind of end of the tunnel prize, these are things that are good for local governments to think about implementing regardless. So we're here to help understand the options and also to help communities kind of walk through the process and figure out what fits best for them. So there's 18 projects available in each individual region, and that's split up, as you can see on the chart, by size. So larger communities have access to larger award amounts, but there's fewer of them, whereas smaller communities, anything under 40,000 in population, have the ability to access up to $100,000 for the first 4 that kind of make it through the program. So it is first come, first served. The first communities that kind of get their foot in the door are the ones that have access to not only the funding, but the larger amounts of funding. So time is of the essence. But there is technical assistance available, as I keep reiterating, for any community who really does want to participate. And that technical assistance can include coming to town board or village board or county legislative meetings, helping understand the actions themselves, the paperwork kind of associated with those actions, so resolutions, different forums. We can also help with financing and funding options. So we're really here to kind of serve as a one-stop shop for local governments who are interested in clean energy and in the Clean Energy Communities Program. One other attractive thing about the funding is that it does have the capability to have a 25% advance at the outset of the project. So if a community is kind of nervous about being able to have a milestone contract where they're on the line for certain money, there is 25% advance available, so communities are able to kind of get a chunk at the beginning. So we get this question pretty often, is what kinds of projects can be funded? Apologies that there's a lot of words on the screen right now, but mainly the projects focus on the approach. Does it have some kind of energy reduction or greenhouse gas benefit? Does it have some local economic development benefits? Is it going to be something that can be replicable? Can other communities learn from your project? Is it have sustainability or greater regional benefits? So these are all things that are pretty open-ended. So we do help again with some of the project ideation process, so we can sit down with the community and brainstorm. We can help with the proposal development. These are all things that we're providing as part of our technical assistance. So if this looks pretty open-ended, don't fear. We think that that's actually a very positive part of this program, is that a lot of creativity can be applied for. So if you have a project in mind, or if you need help in coming up with a project, that's definitely what the coordinators are here for as well. So here are the 10 high impact actions. Today we're going to be focusing, as I think we all know, on community choice aggregation. But there's certainly a lot of other actions on this list that are a benefit to communities to think about and engage with. And we're here to help with all of them. Some of these don't apply to all communities. So for example, Energize New York Finance really only applies to communities that have lien authority, which is generally counties and cities. In other regards, counties, generally can't implement permitting, so a county may not be able to adopt the unified solar permit. So that's where we're here again to help look at this list, figure out what fits best, and help communities pursue whatever it is that they feel is a good fit for their community. So community choice aggregation, again, why we're here today. This is a very simplistic explanation, so we're going to be going into greater detail on what community choice aggregation is. But in a very quick and simplistic sense, it's a way for communities to, and specifically local governments, to help their communities transition to a defined energy supply. It is capable of much more complex things. There's a lot to it, and it's a very exciting proposition. And so I'm going to let the other speakers really dive into it, to what it is, and not spend too much time trying to explain it at this point. But to know that if your community is interested in community choice aggregation as part of the Clean Energy Communities Program, it doesn't necessarily have to be part of the program, but we hope that the Clean Energy Communities Program does spur interest in community choice aggregation. The process must be in the process of implementation or completely active, and that's because of the specific documents that would need to be submitted to NYSERDA to prove that your community choice aggregation program is up and running. And it must have a 100% renewable clean energy product mix. So that's something that I think that the panelists and also the other folks that we are presenting today will talk a little bit more in depth about. But the communities must, if they're interested in submitting for this and getting credit for the Clean Energy Communities Program, you need to submit the local law, so the adopted legislation that is required for anyone who's interested in implementing a community choice aggregation program, and also your agreement, which is why it has to pretty much be in the implementation phase. And I know that, again, other speakers will talk more about what that means. So, as I've been, oh yes?
Robyn, must the community be a municipality?
Yes. Yep.
So it's not a neighborhood thing?
Not a neighborhood thing. Nope.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So what assistance is available? As I mentioned, technical assistance through your local clean energy coordinators. There also are toolkits for each high impact action that are available on the NYSERDA Clean Energy Communities website. The toolkit for the CCA programs it's a very robust toolkit. There's a lot of really great information in there, including model local laws, intermunicipal agreements. I won't go down the full list because you all can go back home after this event and click around. And there's also, kind of in the greater scope of the Clean Energy Communities Program, there are additional funding or financing options for most of the choices on that list of high impact actions. So that's really what we're here to help with. If you're interested in this program in general, there's a lot of information on the NYSERDA website. At that link specifically, otherwise you might spend a little bit of time clicking around, but so I suggest that you use that link specifically. There's also some guidance documents that reiterates most of what's on the screen today and in a lot more detail. So if you're interested in some light bedtime reading, I suggest you check out the guidance document. And also feel free to connect with us after this event or just in general to talk about the Clean Energy Communities Program and how you can get your local government involved. So that is about it for me. I'll open the floor to general questions about the Clean Energy Communities Program because, again, we have lots of other people who are going to be talking about community choice aggregation specifically. Yes?
Robyn, can you get a copy of all the stuff that showed on the screen?
Absolutely.
Robyn, repeat the
Yes.
questions for the tape.
What?
Repeat the question.
Oh, yes. The question was, can we get a copy of these materials after today's workshop? And I said, absolutely. We will definitely send those along. Any other questions about the program? Okay, well, that was easy. Thank you so much. Again, we look forward to talking to everyone throughout the day today while we're all here, and hopefully you guys have a lot of interest in community choice aggregation after you leave the room, and we can help you through the process. Thank you so much.
Good morning. I'm Kelly Connell from the Department of Public Service, and I'm here to talk about New York State's CCA policy. I'm going to quickly go over the goals of the state's Reforming the Energy Vision, followed by a general overview of what CCA is, and then a high-level summary of New York State's CCA framework order. For those of you who haven't heard the acronym REV, REV stands for Reforming the Energy Vision. REV is Governor Cuomo's strategy to build a cleaner, more resilient, and affordable energy system for all New Yorkers by placing clean, locally produced power at the core of New York's energy system. Because REV is aiming to change how energy is produced, delivered, and consumed, CCAs now have the opportunity to help meet the goals of REV. CCA programs can educate, encourage, and empower communities and individuals to take control of their energy future through engagement with existing REV opportunities and the development of new distributed energy resources and energy programs. So some of you might be asking, what is a CCA? CCA is a state policy that enables local governments to aggregate electricity and/or gas demand within their jurisdictions in order to procure alternative energy supplies from an ESCO. The CCA construct provides opportunities for meaningful and effective local and community engagement on critical energy issues. If you're unfamiliar with the term ESCO, ESCO stands for Energy Service Company. Eligible ESCOs in New York State can supply electricity and/or natural gas to residents and non-residential customers. The CCA order was published by the Public Service Commission last April. However, the framework order is just the beginning. There's more work to be done. Using this order as a starting point, the goals of the framework order are increase the ability of individuals and communities to manage their energy usage, facilitate wider market-based deployment of clean energy, and increase the benefits of retail competition for the mass market. The following slides will go over the framework order rules. Please refer to the actual order for more detail on these rules, as I won't have time to go over every little detail. The three types of municipalities under New York State law eligible to form a CCA are villages, towns, and cities. Municipalities may work together to operate a joint CCA program. A municipality or group of municipalities may work with a nonprofit, a consultant, or a third party to act as the CCA administrator. Counties will not be eligible to set up a CCA, but county governments could encourage and coordinate the munis within one county to form a CCA. The county could also support the CCA in an administrative role. CCA programs will be allowed to aggregate both electric and gas supply. CCA programs may aggregate or integrate into their programs energy efficiency and distributed energy resources. So who's eligible to participate in a CCA? All customers, including residential and non-residential, regardless of size, will be eligible to participate in CCA programs. A customer can be enrolled on an opt-out basis if their service class is listed in the order. This table shows an example of service classes that will be permitted to be enrolled on an opt-out. Customers that are already taking services from an ESCO or have placed a freeze or block on their account will not be eligible for opt-out. They will be enrolled on an opt-in basis. I'll talk more about the opt-out process later on. The CCA administrator has flexibility to alter their program in order to meet their program goals and to best represent their communities. They may choose to apply opt-out treatment to a limited class of customers, to allow certain classes of customers to opt in or both. The administrator will determine whether eligible customers who move into a muni with a CCA should be enrolled on an opt-in or an opt-out basis. It is important for munis to engage in robust outreach and education to properly inform their residents of what a CCA it is. To assist with these engagements plans, as Robyn stated, NYSERDA is available as a technical consultant to assist munis and CCA admins through individual consultations and through a toolkit. The CCA administrator must file an implementation plan. The plan must include a description of the program and its goals, plans for value-added services, a public outreach plan, and drafts of written communications with its residents, including the opt-out letter. CCA administrator must also file a data protection plan. That plan must describe how the administrator will ensure the same level of consumer protections as currently provided by utilities and ESCOs, including data security protocols and restrictions to prevent the sale of data. Each muni intended to implement a CCA program must exercise its municipal home rule law authority by enacting a local law. This will give the muni the authority to act as an aggregator or broker for the sale of energy and other services to residents. Once the implementation plan, data protection plan, and proof of local laws have been filed, the Commission will determine whether they comply with the requirements of this order and issue an approval. A well-designed opt-out process is necessary to ensure that customers receive the information and opportunity needed to make a well-informed and timely decision of whether to participate in a CCA program. The following rules will help ensure this. A CCA must provide information and education to potential members over no less than a 2-month period. The mailing of an opt-out letter must go out prior to the filings. Customers must be allowed to opt out and return the utility service anytime before the end of the 3rd billing cycle after enrollment without a penalty. Yep.
Go back to the first one. The second bullet, it says the opt-out letter must be preceded by the filing of the implementation.
Yes, sorry.
So that it's the reverse of what you
Yeah. Sorry about that.
We repeat the question.
The opt-out letter must be preceded by the filings of the implementation plan, data protection plan, and the proof of local laws.
So you file the plans first with the Commission and then the opt-out letter.
Yes, because for right now, the CCA would have to get approval from the Commission before they could send the opt-out. The foundation of a CCA program is a contract between the muni and one or more selected ESCOs. The terms of the contract must comply with applicable requirements for ESCO service. CCA programs will be allowed to contract with more than one ESCO. Contracts should not restrict the installation or use of distributed energy resources or energy efficiency products. At this time, municipalities will not be permitted to allocate a portion of the CCA customer payment to a clean energy or a public benefit fund. Allowing separate collections for a clean energy fund would result in double collections from CCA customers who will continue to pay the system benefit charges. DPS,
Excuse me.
yeah.
Could you go more slowly on this particular bullet and maybe just walk us through it?
Sure. He asked for me to go a little slower on this bullet. So right now, customers will be, whether they're in a CCA, whether being served by an ESCO or the utility, are paying into their SBC charges, which is going towards the Clean Energy Fund and other programs to help facilitate clean energy. So what this is saying is there's not going to be a charge on the actual CCA price that is negotiated with the ESCO, because they're already being charged the SPC. So we don't want CCA customers to be paying twice for something that's going towards clean energy. However, NYSERDA, DPS, and distribution and utilities should work with CCAs to explore how CCA communities can accelerate the adoption of energy efficiency and DER in the manner that benefits the customers and individual consumers. Many REV and CEF programs, including Community DG, Solarize New York, and REV demonstration projects, offer the potential of strong synergy with CCA programs. New York's, we're also in the process via the CEAC, Clean Energy Advisory Council, of we have a CCA subgroup working on how to, how we can fund these clean energy projects within communities.
Kelly,
Yes.
could you clarify one more time? I think what we were just talking about is the ESCO or the CCA cannot create a surcharge, which is meant to be an additional support for clean energy locally or within the CCA. I think that's what you were explaining.
Yes.
You can't create another SBC.
Right. A CCA cannot create another SBC.
Specific to the CCA.
Correct.
But in no way does that preclude trying to encourage clean energy all around.
No, absolutely not. They just cannot have a surcharge into the contract with the ESCO for the supply.
So I don't know if you realized, but maybe this was the intent that the funding had to increase since that one slide where you were talking about these valves and happening and create another
Okay.
So that's the right slide, that's all I know.
Okay. Yeah, this is it. Yes.
If I go online and download the order,
Yep.
can I get all this information? Or is this something special? Can I download everything you're just showing us if I go look at the order?
Well, these presentations are going to be shared. If you went to the order, you would see all this information hidden within the order. And that's case 14M0224. But I believe these slides are going to be shared.
I guess I understand.
Any other questions? Yep, it's 14M0224. Okay, there are three sets of data initially needed to begin a CCA: aggregated data, customer contact information, and detailed customer usage information. The administrator may request aggregated data after commission approval of its plans. What contracts with ESCOs have been entered into, customer-specific information, such as names, addresses, can be requested for all eligible customers. Detailed customer information, such as their usage, can be requested for eligible customers who did not opt out once the initial opt-out period has ended. Yep.
Which entity has a computer with all this information on?
Which entity has a computer with all this information on it?
Yeah.
The utility.
I'm sorry.
The utility?
The utility does.
Right.
So the ESCO actually
The utility would have to transfer the data to the ESCO via EDI.
What, are there anything, is there any instructions that whoever has that data bank really has to go out of the way to protect it?
That's in the data protection plan. The utilities are also working on a data security agreement.
There are only two kinds of computer systems, those that have been hacked and those that are going to be hacked. So that's a really issue.
Right, and within that case number, you'll see the draft of the joint utilities filed data security agreement. You also see some examples of data protection plans that for CCAs who have already filed with the commission. So there will be protection. The CCA administrator will need to file an annual report. Annual reports should be filed with the secretary by March 31st of each year and cover the previous calendar year. The annual reports will include number of customers served, number of customers who canceled, number of complaints, commodity prices paid, value-added services provided, and administrative costs collected. The first report should also include the number of customers who opted out in response to the initial opt-out letters. Yes?
You said administration, it's like administrative cost collected, so that's a distinguished from benefit charge. So
Yes, so
ESCO can charge additional costs for its administration, but not for additional programs or benefits.
exactly. And that would be negotiated during the contract, with whichever ESCO or ESCOs you choose. Yes?
Who provides the added services in this model?
So he asked who provides the value-added services. You know, that's up to the community and what their goals are. It could be an energy efficiency program that they want to run. It could be, maybe a demand response with a utility. It could be a community solar project within the community. Who provides it would be up to the community to choose either a DER provider or an ESCO.
Well, so let's just say that the community wants to provide a demand response service as a DER through its ESCO. Its contract would then have to provide that the ESCO has made arrangements to be paid to the value of that service that the ESCO is basically brokering as an aggregator for its members or its clients.
Right.
That's the way it works.
But they would also have to make sure that the DER program is correlated with the utility.
And I'm sorry, the DER program.
The DER, if the demand response program within a community, I believe it would have to be up to the community to have that DER program in that area to make it valuable. If it was an energy efficiency program,
Well, I'm thinking specifically of a community that wanted to add a demand response service, such as Clifton Park is going to be doing, or is in the process. So we're providing an experimental value-added service as residents doing demand response.
is that through the National Grid demo?
Yes.
Right, okay.
So if we were to find ourselves in this frame, providing the same service, the value that we've provided collectively needs to be returned to the providers. So I would say that such a framework allows the citizens, the residents, to go to the ESCO and say, here's the service you will be given by us. We want so much money to do that. The ESCO will say, Okay, here's your administrative fee. And will that be it? And the ESCO is responsible then to provide our demand response
Right.
value to whoever he sells it to.
In partnership with the utility, yes.
Okay, in partnership with the utility.
Because you got to remember the utilities are still delivering the energy. So demand response has the value at the time.
Utility in another jurisdiction, now that's getting complicated. My ESCO has two jurisdictions, say National Grid and NYSERDA. My utility, I say my customers. My members.
So your CCA is being served by two different
My
utilities.
ESCO has two.
Then maybe you have two different DR programs.
And my ESCO takes care of that.
That's between the CCA and the ESCO, but yes. You can also go into contract with DER providers.
Thank you.
We encourage, the state's encouraging more than one contract with either an ESCO or DERs. We obviously want a lot of DER on the grid. So there's nothing holding you back, but you would.
It's demand response, is it not?
Demand response is a form of DER, yes.
Yeah.
DER isn't demand response.
Yes, but it's not efficiency.
DER is efficiency. Demand response,
So you can sell efficiency?
maybe.
I know you pay for it.
Reverse PPA.
Well, it's an added value in your model. And you're talking about it being a DER. It's really up to the good citizens to provide it at no cost.
Any other questions? Thank you.
And so now we're going to pick up with our panel of experts, led and moderated by Sam Kraemer from NYSERDA. We have Louise Gava, we have Javier Barrios, we have Glenn Weinberg, and we have Jen Metzger. So take it away, Sam.
Thanks, Todd. So my name is Sam Kraemer. I'm from NYSERDA. I work with the communities and local government team at NYSERDA, who is kind of overseeing this whole Clean Energy Communities program. And before we get in, I'm going to give everyone up here a chance to introduce themselves and kind of say what they've been working on in terms of community choice aggregation. So just go down the line. Louise, you want to start?
Sure. I'm Louise Gava. I work with the Municipal Electric and Gas Alliance, that's MEGA. We have been aggregators for municipal government since the time of deregulation in New York. We came out of a pilot program with DPS where we had Tompkins County and Tioga County saying, how can we deal with this deregulation, again, just like we are now with CCA, a new opportunity to look at where your electric supply is coming from. That pilot was very successful. It included low-income residents in those two communities. And it was so successful that other counties wanted to get involved, such that MEGA was formed. So we're a local development corporation, not-for-profit. We started with 2 counties, now we're 35 counties in New York State and 240 other municipal entities. So it was pretty logical for us to step into a CCA administrator role. We had 11 of our counties and 22 other of our municipalities asking us to develop a CCA program. So we have been doing that for the last about 18 months now. We have a very basic model, really focused on some of the nuts and bolts of CCA and making sure that the model does work in New York State. We only have one pilot program operating right now. And as we've sort of started to discuss this morning, there are some big challenges, there are some data concerns, there are some other things that we're all still working through for this model to be effective in New York, including the integration of renewable energy and DER. And those things, there are lots of proceedings, as you all know, going on that are going to make that integration smooth for CCA. MEGA's focus right now, too, I think Kelly alluded to this, education is really key. When we're out in communities, it's very clear that energy education and awareness is fairly low, which is not to be unexpected. And so we're really starting at a fundamental base level and making sure that our citizens understand the difference between delivery and supply. Most folks don't. A lot of folks still think that you have to go off grid to have solar. So we really are starting at a fundamental base level and really focusing on education. Sam, did you want me to address some of the questions or no? Just stop there?
Not yet.
Okay, great. Go ahead, Javier.
Oh, thank you. I'm Javier Barrios, managing partner with Good Energy. We are an aggregator consultant and have been in the CCA space, community choice aggregation space, as long as you can do it. We've been around for almost 2 decades. I'm one of the founding partners, so I've been with the company from the start, and focused on consulting commercial and industrial customers. Found ourselves moving into the public sector about 10 years ago, and formed, like Mega and others have formed, public sector aggregations throughout the country. So we're in 21 different states for both natural gas and electricity. And we're very successful as pioneers in the Ameren territory and the MISO market, which is the Illinois Midwest market for CCA. We are actively running, along with C&I aggregations in public sector and CCA, about 400 public sector aggregations and community choice aggregations in Massachusetts, in Illinois, California, New Jersey. So we just about a month ago, we reached our 1 million household aggregated, amount for CCA. So we're very excited. I worked with Glenn as an advisor to Sustainable Westchester, which was the first pilot in the program, and he'll go into that a little bit more. But we're actively working on all the counties throughout New York State, obviously a stakeholder here, making sure that CCA is a successful program. We believe in it. We think it's trending. New York is only the 7th state in the country that has passed either administrative ruling or statutory law to allow this. So we're very excited. And I just want to thank NYSERDA and the DPS staff for inviting me here, and represent Good Energy. I think that working in other states and understanding the politics between the regulatory agencies, the entrepreneurs, the private entities, and also the government officials, state officials. New York has a really nice balance, and they're promoting this very nicely. You go to other states, you don't want to take this for granted. Fortunately, I won't mention which state, but there are states where utilities are against this for whatever reason. So this is an exciting time. It really is to see this type of program succeed, especially the way tariffs are structured here in New York. I think it gives optionality to municipalities and optionality to your constituents if you're a municipal official. So it's very exciting to not only provide an economic value, but have CCA as a sounding board for other renewable projects. So CCA is a monster in itself, and you have to really manage it well. And as we said, there's a education and a community outreach aspect to it that is very key. And so I think what we do well at Good Energy is really know how to insulate our government officials and making sure that the program is run solid and run well.
Hi, I'm Glenn Weinberg. I'm from Joule Assets. I'm the Director of Community Energy there. Joule is essentially a DER company. We focus on small and medium-sized consumers, and we're really focused on getting those smaller consumers access to markets, energy markets, that they've previously been excluded from. So we develop energy efficiency software, we finance energy efficiency projects. We are service providers for demand management and demand response programs, in addition to CCA administration. So we really are sort of that diverse DER outfit. I personally came to Joule from Sustainable Westchester. As Javier mentioned, I was the first program director of the state pilot, Westchester Power, which is now in its 10th month and serves about 90,000 customers down in Westchester County, both Con Ed and Westchester and NYSEG service territories. There are 20 participating municipalities in the Westchester program, and there are 2 options in that program. A 100% renewable option, and then a basic system mix option. About 2/3 of those 90,000 customers are enrolled in the 100% renewable option, and to date, the combined savings in that program is over $2 million conservatively. So they're buying green and they're saving money simultaneously, so it's a real win-win. But now the next challenge, the second generation CCA challenge, is really in front of us, which is how are we going to integrate DER into these programs. The commodity savings and the commodity buying of renewable power is great. It's a great first step, but it's not nearly enough. So at Joule, we're really focused on that second phase. We're really interested in programs that are committed to that DER step. That's what we do, and that's what we know best. So that's what we're really focused on. Maybe I'll leave it at that for the moment.
Hi, I'm Jen Metzger. I actually wear a couple of hats. One of them is I'm a town councilwoman in the town of Rosendale, and I'm heading up our town's efforts to get our clean energy communities for high impact actions. We're just about to finish that up. But I've been involved in local government for a long time on energy issues. And so, come at it from that perspective, from a municipal perspective. But I also direct an organization called Citizens for Local Power, which is a nonprofit organization based in Ulster County that is devoted to helping communities transition to a more locally based clean energy economy. And we work a lot with municipalities, we work a lot with the public, and we have been involved we have been a huge advocate of bringing community choice aggregation to New York. We worked with our state assemblyman back in 2014 to introduce a bill in the state legislature that would have enabled it statewide. Then, shortly afterward, the Reforming the Energy Vision Initiative was initiated, and that whole conversation moved to the Public Service Commission, and we've been active parties in the state's, in the PSC's REV proceedings. There's a multitude of proceedings, including the proceeding that enabled CCA last year, in April of last year. We are focused on, I'm going to talk about it a bit later, but on a model of CCA that we refer to as CCA 2.0. But our concern is really about how can we use CCA to facilitate local clean energy investments that will benefit our communities for the long haul. And we've been working with Paul Fenn over the years, who Local Power 8, he's based in California now, but he is the father of CCA. He wrote the first law enabling CCA in the country in Massachusetts in 1997. And he is the real kind of deep thinker about CCA, and the models of CCA have evolved quite a bit. So I'll talk about that in a bit. Thanks.
Thank all of you. I was going to give some background context before I got into my questions, and I think every single one of you said something that I was going to say, so that made me feel good that I'm on the ball, I think. I wanted to stress also, as Javier said, we're the 7th state to legalize CCA, and this is really a great opportunity for everyone here. You're unlikely to find 4 people, I think, who know more about CCA, certainly within New York State and even nationwide. This is a really excellent panel to learn from. So I wanted to just give a little context, and as Jen just alluded to, we're going to be, when you hear more and more about CCA, you'll hear about 1.0 and 2.0, and that kind of frames some of our conversation today. Historically, a lot of CCAs in other states were set up really with the sole goal of just saving ratepayer money, and while that's not a bad thing, there was no emphasis on clean power or sustainability or energy efficiency, and that's really obviously not the goal of NYSERDA's programs or DPS's programs. We're certainly trying to incorporate what's more so referred to as CCA 2.0 here in New York State, which is everything that people have been talking about today. How do we get distributed energy resources? How do we get energy efficiency? How do we transition to clean power through a CCA? So with that in mind, that'll help contextualize my questions and I hope bring you all a better understanding. So my first two questions I realize are kind of combined. So the first one I wanted to ask was, how will CCA support the growth of clean energy produced in New York State? And then what are you all and your different ventures doing to go beyond CCA 1.0 right now? And to go back to the first question, how will CCA support growth of clean energy? Why would an organization like NYSERDA that I work for, why are we promoting this essentially? So anyone can take that. We can go down the line again. Up to you all.
I have one quick comment, which is that for folks to understand if the Clean Energy Fund and sort of where New York is thinking about what they're doing, there's really two main sectors in New York. There's sort of the regulatory side and the mandate side, and that's what all of our utilities and our, the municipal electrics and the ESCOs are having to actually comply with. And then there's this other really powerful and exciting side, and that's the voluntary side. And that's where CCA can really come in, because that's where citizens can voice their power through their local governments and say, well, this is what the state's mandating, but this is what works best for our community. And so CCA has a really powerful opportunity because it can take us beyond what is just required in the state. And it allows a little more imagination and a little more personalization in the state.
I'll go. It's a, I want to say, hey, 2.0 is here and we're ready to go. But we first have to get through 1.0 is really my position on this. Because there are renewable projects that are happening right now without CCA. There's nothing that should stop that. That should always be progressing. That should always be moving. And so CCA, what it does, in my opinion, is that, back to the education point and outreach, it essentially empowers local government. And when you empower local government and it filters through to the constituency and their citizens, now you have a voice. And the more you educate that constituency and create this audience that now wants renewable power, that's a powerful thing. So I think what I said before, the word sounding board, is appropriate for CCA, because it is, as much as we want to be at 2.0, if CCA is successful, because it's still in the infant stage in New York, if it's successful, and we want to promote it, we want government officials to realize how powerful CCA is. Once it's there, that's a game changer. Until then, renewable resources like distributed energy resources, whether it's wind or solar or CHP or energy efficiency through LED lightings and all the great action items that the Clean Energy Communities program is offering. All that education is going to be good and reach those less forward-thinking counties, right? There's a lot of forward-thinking counties right now that have their mind share is all about sustainability, and then there's others that really are thinking about more of their local economy. They're thinking about emergency services. How to get an ambulance. That's what they're worried about. They're not worried about creating investments to be more green. They're worried about the bottom line, what their municipal budgets are going to be like in the following year. So the whole point is, when they realize how much more leverage they have with a program like CCA, now the conversation happens, and it's not just in the populated metropolitan areas. You're going out into the rural areas and talking about these projects. So I think that's my position on that. Of course, to answer your question, we have a lighting efficiency arm at our company where we distribute all the major brands. We're on the boards of Education, LED Education, and so I think through efficiencies, that's a great way through DR programs and special projects. We're going to be partnering up with many companies through our CCA programs.
So I think, Sam, I think your question got to it. For us, it's really not about CCA, as Javier is saying, 1.0 or 2.0. It's about how do you get from 1.0 to 2.0, and what's the best path, and how do you really empower communities to do that? So the way that we're thinking about that is that in every aggregation program that we build, we're doing it with a local partner. And that's a homegrown, often non-for-profit, not all are non-for-profit, but most of them are. That is a homegrown group or organization that lives and works in that local economy, and they know the community, and they know how to navigate both the political side and the community side. And that's the way that we can ensure, and we keep the money, those energy dollars, local in the community by forming those local partnerships. And that's going to ensure that all that education and outreach and community empowerment that's absolutely necessary, as both Louise and Javier are saying, it's absolutely necessary to grow the DER and really get those enriched CCA programs implemented and online. There needs to be that local presence. There needs to be the community engagement in a real way. It's not just about educating municipal officials or empowering municipal officials. It's about empowering and educating whole communities. So more practically, how we think we can get that done is really through innovative contract structures. We really build the first kind of effort at that in the Westchester contract. We have a provision in our contract that allows us to supplement or substitute the sort of bulk power that we're purchasing on the market, or that our suppliers are purchasing on the market, with any local renewables that come online over the course of that contract, and forces that supplier to then sell off the excess, and any profit from that sale goes right back to the community. So that's a really innovative kind of contract provision that ensures that any kind of local renewables that come on are going to benefit the community and not just the developers. The other way that we do it is through really open, transparent value propositions. So our company, everything that we do, we only derive revenue when we're creating value for customers. Right? We only take a piece of that. So CCA really should follow that same guideline. When there's value created in the community, right, that's when the third parties and the developers can come in and get their piece. But it's not until the community has that kind of permanent local value that they can then share some of that value.
So I guess I'd like to respond to two comments that you guys made. One is this, the idea that you have to first get your CCA set up and then start doing the education. We've been doing public education and working with municipalities for a couple of years now in our area on CCA, and have been involved in a lot of discussions. And I can say with great confidence that there is a lot of interest across the political spectrum in the kind of energy programs that will actually increase local control over energy decision making in a meaningful way, contribute to community resilience. You spoke about emergency services, microgrids, and protect, basically having that kind of infrastructure, and in creating local jobs through and keeping most. We export 92% of our energy dollars. All of us do, and those energy dollars could be invested in our communities. And so the conversation is really about. I think you can really. There is a lot of support for creating some sort of locally focused CCA that really tries to facilitate local investments rather than just getting supply contracts for rates, lower, more stable rates. And what we're doing in Ulster County, I can give some examples later. It's very helpful to see what CCAs in other parts of the country are doing, because there are some really interesting things that are being done in California by Sonoma Clean Power, Marin Clean Energy, and even closer to home, the Cape Light Compact in Massachusetts. But they all have programs that are focused on building out local renewable resources and changing. I'll just give one example. Sonoma Clean Power actually has partnered with a company to offer 1,000 free charging stations to their customers in their community. And they're smart charging stations, and they're simultaneously encouraging the shift to EVs, but also ensuring that charging is done at times that will benefit their customers using smart technology. So at the times of day when it's not peak, when electricity is cheaper, and when the power they're using is cleaner. So they're really trying to fundamentally change how energy is used in ways locally that will benefit their communities. The Cape Light Compact in Massachusetts, the centerpiece of their CCA, they all have power procurement programs, but the centerpiece of their CCA is their energy efficiency programs. That's what they're known for. That's what their community really values. Their power procurement program has had sort of mixed success in getting lower rates for they're the oldest CCA. They've been around since 1997. It's 21 municipalities in 2 counties. It's all of Cape Cod and Martha's Vineyard. And but there's so much interest and support for the energy efficiency programs because they bring about permanent reductions in their customers' bills. It's not a question of just getting a lower rate for 2 or 3 years. It's how do we lower our residents and our businesses' energy costs, for the long haul. So in Ulster County, we have a working group of municipal officials and organizations working in the energy space to develop a CCA. And we're looking to, we're right now investigating different types of administrative structures, but we believe it's very important to have a local institutional capacity to administer that CCA. That's sort of central to our vision of local control. And we're looking at, for instance, basically a local energy development corporation, an LDC structure, where the municipalities, the communities that are members of the CCA would have representation on that board and would collectively make decisions. And we imagine that the programs will be, I'm getting maybe into too much detail. Should I? All right, I'll just say one more thing about it. So, and it is, evolutionary in the sense that, we'll roll different kinds of programs out over time, but we want to start our CCA with something that's truly local. We're hoping to have 2 community renewable projects for our customers to participate in, because that is what's going to excite people. What's going to excite people is how can we be part of a local energy project that benefits our communities in meaningful ways? So.
Great, thank you. I just wanted to kind of highlight 2 things that I think I heard from all of you. Is one, and I think Kelly dealt with this earlier when she was getting questioned, is the variety of options that are open for CCAs and how they can improve the local energy picture, the local economy. And I think that's what I think all of us are excited about, is that we're kind of dealing in this unknown. Again, we're only the 7th state. There's only been 1 CCA done in New York State so far. And the possibilities are kind of there for anyone to come up with a great idea to add to their CCA to just go forward with. And it could be anyone here in this room. It's not necessarily someone up here who will think of something that can make a great program. Secondly, Javier said specifically something about how rural counties and smaller municipalities can be involved in this. And I think that that's one of the great things is through municipalities joining together to make a CCA, you have the opportunity to include, I think New York State has around 1,000 municipalities that have 5,000 people or less. And they're generally left out of a lot of these things. But if you're within 30 minutes of 45 minutes of an Albany, Syracuse, Rochester, Buffalo, and any of those places is going forward with something like this, you can easily join them. And that's not to say you even have to be with, there's Binghamton, Utica, and even smaller communities can band together to make the market clout necessary for this. So I think it's it's a great opportunity for every municipality in the state, and not something that will be limited by size or location. To go in a kind of different direction, everyone here, obviously the Clean Energy Community Program is all about municipalities. So I wanted to hear a little bit about everyone's experience dealing with municipalities and the stuff that you folks are all going to, either you're a part of a municipality or you'll be working with a municipality to make these things happen. In your work, what about joining the CCA has been very attractive to the municipalities that you've been working with, and also what has made a municipality hesitant about joining? And I think you've all kind of worked with municipalities in a variety of ways on this, so I think it's very interesting.
So I'll just give you some insights. We're working with, again, I think someone said, or someone was saying, the different size of communities that you work with for CCA, again, going down to 300 households, up to the many thousands of households, and rural and very urban. And what you're saying, Sam, is that they all can work together. But what's really interesting is one of the benefits that a lot of them focus on, particularly mid-sized communities that have been heavily hit by door-to-door marketing of energy services companies, where folks are coming into their communities, they're not even necessarily getting permits, and they're going and knocking on the doors of their residents and trying to sell electric supply, often with not great terms or great rates, and very high-pressure sales tactics. And so a lot of the communities that we've gone into have honed in on that actually as one of the first value propositions for their community, is that this is both an opportunity to nip some of that in the bud and try to chase off some of those people, but also to educate their citizenry on, if they are going to make a decision on their own, what does that decision look like? What are the kind of questions we should be asking? What do I need to look at on my bill? How do I even understand my bill? So that's been that's like the key thing for a lot of communities, even before any renewable piece or anything, because it's dealing with the challenges that they have right now and are facing right now. I actually unfortunately heard a terrible story yesterday that one municipality, actually one of those folks that was going around, actually broke into someone's house. So it was even like taking it a step further. I'd not ever heard that. So this took the predatory practices to a different legal degree. So needless to say, they were very excited about CCA. So that's the first benefit that a lot of municipal leaders that we're talking to hone in on. I do want to give one challenge because I think Kelly explained the opt-out structure and this idea that we're creating this new default, this group that we're all going to be working together. And some municipalities across the state, that's very scary to them. That feels like we're and maybe Jen, that's to where you're talking about, the education first of the citizens. Sometimes municipalities feel like they're making decisions for their residents in an inappropriate way. And so there is that initial concern, and I hear a lot, why did the state make it opt-out? Why couldn't it be opt-in? That's one of the first pieces. But again, that's in the beginning stages of educating municipalities and their residents.
Louise, that was interesting. I never thought of CCA as a crime stopper.
Well, I didn't either until yesterday.
But I'm going to use that now.
With only one
CCA is a
community.
crime stopper. But I love it. So CCA is a crime stopper first. Then, where do I begin? I mean, that's a valuable point. I think that obviously CCA on the commodity side creates a level playing field for residential customers, because residential customers have been preyed upon by, for lack of a better word, kind of these C-rated, D-rated suppliers, right? So what happens is all these suppliers that are used to, working for commercial and industrial customers who are A-rated will now bid for these large aggregations. Because if you look at the state, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong with the numbers, but about 90% of commercial customers throughout deregulated states are participating in competitive choice and competitive markets, right? And it's the polar opposite with residential markets, right? It's the residential market over the years in deregulation competitive states is this forgotten market. And so CCA is powerful enough that it's a game changer and evens the playing field. So, to answer the points of what's attractive to it, what's unattractive, is that buying power, obviously. besides the renewable piece. That buying power is key because an individual customer really doesn't have the level of expertise or the time to really look into multiple suppliers. A lot of people do it, but a lot of people are just busy trying to make ends meet. So I think that's one. The opt-out issue is always comes up, whether it's common council meetings or board meetings, because the municipality and the people in the audience are saying, why are you deciding the power options for me? I want to do this myself. But unfortunately, that's really what you have to do for a CCA, because you're not going to have the buying power unless it's an opt-out. If you do an opt-in, the numbers are going to be very low. They're going to be 1 or 2%. They're going to be opting in. On an opt-out, you have an instant aggregation. You have this. You can go into the market with larger numbers. So that's why CCA in other states has worked, because of this whole opt-out. It's a secret sauce kind of thing. So I think that's what some municipalities are concerned about is, why is it opt-out? Why are people deciding? Once they realize that, the utility is a default rate already. So all we're doing is giving you a second default rate, and then you could leave that default rate whenever you'd like. So it's an issue where I think we put this, the consumer protection rules in place in the contracts in all our CCAs, where there's no termination penalties, you come in and out of the program. So there's a lot of flexibility that even commercial and industrial customers don't have. They have to be on a fixed rate for a certain term. An individual now has the buying power and now has the contract flexibility to step out of the program.
Yeah, I'll echo a couple of points that Louise and Javier made. But start with, municipalities get really excited in our experience. They get really excited when they have a local problem, right? So, and we've seen them all, or many of them. There are areas that have a lot of developable land that want to get some solar investment and some solar power into the area. We're working with communities that have real demand challenges, peak demand challenges, that are interested in demand responsive, demand management. Communities with the old hydro plant on the river that they're considering sort of retrofitting and repowering, and want to be able to self-supply with that power, that local renewable power. We're working with groups that are interested in trying to figure out gas efficiency, energy efficiency for gas, because they're anti-fracking and want to figure out solutions for natural gas moving forward, understanding that natural gas isn't going anywhere tomorrow. So there's all sorts of local energy problems, and CCA doesn't automatically fix any of those problems. It gives you, Javier called it a sounding board. It gives you that authority, that local authority to address your local problems, and that's really the most powerful aspect of CCA. As far as I'm concerned. In terms of but also people are really just excited about the kind of win-win seeming proposition of getting lower rates and getting cleaner power. I was at a public hearing last week where there were kids holding up CCA signs. They weren't necessarily thinking about 2.0, 3.0. They just were really excited about being able to buy clean power at competitive prices, because they know their parents are excited about it, and they know that they're really interested in helping the environment. They said so. They stood up at the public hearing and made their points about their environmental concerns. It was really powerful. It was great, right? And so the whole community is really rallying around just that 1.0 concept of being able to do bulk power purchase for renewables. In terms of the opt-in, opt-out, you can do opt-in now with no legislation or no regulatory protocol at all, right? Even a municipally sponsored opt-in. You can have a community program that's sponsored by the municipality, and anybody that wants to join a buying group can do that. We've had that power for decades. So that's not anything new or exciting per se on its own. It's that opt-out power that Louise and Javier mentioned, that buying power, that group buying power, that really changes the whole ballgame for municipalities and for communities in what they can do with it. Not just the rate they can get on the front end, but what they can do with it on the back end.
Thanks, Glenn. I think I agree with you that you really need to have a focus on what are the local needs and how can a CCA serve the local needs. As an elected official, I say like it would be very hard for me if somebody came in and said we're defaulting everybody into, if I knew nothing about CCA, this program would default all your residents and businesses into this municipal energy program. And your first question would be like, well, what if the rates go up? I'll be tossed out of my ear in next election cycle or that kind of thing. And so you have to have a bigger vision of what you want your CCA to do to actually be a sustainable program over the long term. In Illinois, they have hundreds of CCAs, I think, in Illinois. There are a large number of them are, I guess, what we would call idle right now because they couldn't get a rate that beat their utility. And there is a discussion happening in Illinois about they were focused very narrowly on rates and not looking at the kinds of energy services that a CCA could provide to a community and that would serve community needs. And they're now shifting. They're now having that discussion there. These are the CCAs that started in the 1990s that were really focused on rates. So I think you have to have a broader vision, and the education component is huge. You really have to do a lot of education up front of your communities, not just the municipalities, but of the communities too, and get the communities excited about participating in a shared energy project and participating in figuring out what you want to do in that project, what the focus should be, rather than a municipality just kind of like imposing something on the community. I think that's really important.
I just want to add something and give a relative perspective too. New York is one of a few states that are deregulated. Not every state in the country is deregulated. So people don't have the option that municipalities and consumers have. So when people ask about this whole opt-out situation, well, other people don't have a choice at all. They have to take the power, whatever the cost is. So again, I said it earlier, optionality is critical. So I think municipalities are a little hung up on the opt-out, but once they realize, relatively speaking, that there is no choice in several states, because competition in energy is state-run. It's passed by the state government. So when you put in that perspective, I just wanted to add to my point.
Thanks. I think yeah, sure.
At the risk of sounding like, would we be very specific about the opt-out? Regulation, if I understand it, the CCA is this. The community is going to do it, and the only choice you have is to say, I don't want to do it. But basically, the community is saying, everybody has to do it. Is that what the opt-out is all about? So everyone must sign up.
Initially.
So it's not exactly everyone. It's everyone that's getting their supply. Repeat the question. So just you're looking for clarification about what opt-out means for a CCA program. So all of the residential and small commercial customers in your borders that still get supply through the utility. The utility is still the default supplier. Basically, as soon as the CCA, local law is approved and contracts are signed, all of those customers are shifted over to the CCA program, and those customers have a period that's set in the law. Did you talk about that? Okay. To opt out of the program those customers in your community that are already enrolled with an ESCO, Green Mountain, or any of those other energy supply companies, they would have to opt in because they've already made the active decision to choose another retail supplier. So they would not be defaulted in. They would have to, join it, make that decision. But the opt-out,
If you already have a contract with an existing ESCO, and the community decides that, in the case of Weinberg, everybody's going to sign up to get their power from National Grid, except those people who are getting it from some other ESCO. So the opt-out is for those people who are in that situation. They've already signed a contract with Joe Dokes in East Ipswich somewhere, and it's not National Grid, in the case of Weinberg. Those people can opt out because they have that contract.
They don't have to opt out.
They're automatically
They aren't included.
they're not included, so they would have to just decide they don't want to stay with their energy service provider and then shift to the CCA. They have to make that conscious move as opposed, so it is, as they said, it's basically the CCA is moving your customers from one default supplier to another default supplier. The utility just, they just procure it for you.
So I'd like to point out, by the way, there's nobody in this room that I understand is from National Grid. I've been in meetings where National Grid was not happy about it.
Go ahead.
And I've been in meetings where no utility is happy about this conversation, nor are public officials, nor are the regulators. Specifically, the utility has the burden of being the people who deliver whatever supply there is, gas or electric. The utilities are required by the unhappy regulator sometimes to put more and more ratepayer dollars into a hedge fund. The hedge fund is a lot of money that provides rate stability from the very large. Thank you, but in a nutshell, the CCA challenge, as I see it, is to account for the hedge fund pot of gold that's being invested by the utilities right now. The hedge fund is funded by rates. When utility supply goes up in price, the hedge fund basically is a rainy day fund that helps customers get less of a rate impact. So how do CCAs account for what I'm calling a rainy day fund, a rainy day account, a hedge fund? Call it what you want. It gives rate stability.
I can answer that. So the way the market is structured, for everybody else, it sounds like you understand how the rates, you understand that there's two components to a bill, right? So there's the delivery rates, which is the utility. So the utility gets paid, right, for transporting the electrons or the gas to the customer premise. And then the way New York has the tariff set up, it's pegged to the day-ahead market, and that's an index market. So that supply portion is what it is. So as the rates fluctuate, it's basically assembled through the tariff rates and trickled down. So the utility, you were saying that the utility has this special fund. The utility is getting paid for the delivery services that they're offering.
And
So,
in many cases, they're buying an awful lot.
and then there's system benefit funds, and I don't want to go into it, but there's the market force. So the supply that you're paying for is for the generation, right? For that generation portion. So that's going to either a generator or it's going to an ESCO, right? And then there's market players that are members of the ISO. So if they're the ones that are making money on the supply, the delivery portion, and correct me if I'm wrong, is where the system benefits funds go. So you are paying into that no matter what. So I don't know.
Paying into a hedge fund.
Yeah.
I don't know what.
Utilities have hedge funds.
So the utilities don't, you get a merchant function charge on your bill. And that merchant, they don't profit from supply. There's a merchant function charge. on there that basically pays the utility to
Procure
your supply for you. They're agnostic on, it's set up for that, for utilities to be agnostic on supply, except of course they have an interest in capital projects on the distribution system, but that's a whole other story. but I'm not sure, I don't quite understand what you mean about a hedge fund and how that relates to their distribution business. But,
I think there's some confusion here. For the last 20 years, roughly, the utilities have only been able to pass through market price of power on the day-ahead market to full-service utility customers, people that are buying the supply and the delivery together from the utility. They have not been allowed to hedge the energy price. So a full-service utility customer is on a variable rate for the commodity. It goes up and down with the marketplace. The only participants in the energy industry in New York that actually go out and buy hedges and swaps and collars and all that insurance protection are the ESCOs, who are then able to offer the customer a fixed price or some kind of hedge price against the market. And that is what the CCA would be shopping for if customers felt they wanted to get value by eliminating that variable price as a full-service utility customer and get on to something that's more stable. That's a value. But it's the ESCO that will be buying the hedges. Utility is not allowed to, I think with some exceptions in the gas side, but generally speaking on the electric side, not at all.
And I would just add that that's why we think it's really important that CCAs go out for contract, that they put language in that contract that gives them some control over that hedge. Essentially, the control over how the supplier can profit off that hedge if there are trades down the road. So that hedge that I think you're talking about, if Gordon is getting to the point, that hedge that you're talking about in terms of buying blocks of energy out into the future, that hedge is a really valuable asset. It should belong to the community, I think, this CCA, for all intents and purposes, even though the supplier is the one who produces it.
So if I could just get some, is this on? So just for my clarification, so any resident, for example, that's buying from a supplier that they chose, that's considered an ESCO, and they would have to disengage with that ESCO in order to be part of the community aggregation.
That's right, but that's only about 25, I think maybe 25% of the residential market in New York State. Almost everybody, the majority of people still get their supply from the utility.
So the community aggregation organization would go out to these ESCOs and they could buy one or more ESCO services. So they could buy, say, one from a 100% solar provider, another one from one that's being provided by the cheapest available energy, whatever, and then offer those choices back to the residents. Is that correct?
Yes.
So I could I'd like to just give an example of something that we're looking to do in our CCA that doesn't have anything to do with ESCO contracts. And that is a community renewable project. We have a couple of different prospective projects in Ulster County. But one of them is it's a businessman. He has a construction equipment business. He has purchased a large property and moved his business operation there. It's in an industrial zone adjacent to a substation. And he really wants to develop solar on the property to meet his own electricity needs in his business, but he's also interested in developing the project for other reasons, including for a community renewable project. He wants to control it. He wants to build it. He wants to hire the team to build it. He doesn't want Cypress Creek or Solar City to come in and do it for him. And he is looking for a local partner. And so our CCA would basically partner with him and do the administration part, because he doesn't want to he doesn't want to get involved in like the customers, getting all the customers to procure all the power and all of that. He just wants to build it, have it there, you know, get the energy he needs, and then have someone else administer the community part. So that's what we would do, and that would also, we're looking into this, but we're going to partner with the Green Bank and see if we can get some issues with community solar. It offers enormous opportunities in New York State. This is new to New York. It was an order that was, the commission order was in 2015, I think?
October, yeah.
Right? So most people, most businesses, most residents don't have access to solar because of siting constraints where they live or work, or because they rent, or they don't have the money to make that upfront investment. So if you can have a community solar project with subscribers, you can actually, you open up the benefits of local renewable ownership to everyone in your community. So it's very enticing, but it's a new thing. Local banks don't quite understand it. There's, it's like, so they think it's very risky. And so a CCA can reduce that, potentially reduce that concern about risk, because you have direct access to all of the electricity customers in your community, and you can be constantly subscribing them. So if one person leaves a community, moves away to Minnesota, their renewable power, you can easily find another customer to take over their subscription. So this is, again, a role that a CCA can do to support the kinds of investments that benefit the community that might be a little risky or might not otherwise come to your community.
Yeah, and to Jen's point, these projects are going up everywhere, as Javier mentioned earlier, right, with or without CCA, in most cases without CCA. But that piece that Jen is mentioning, that layer that the CCA can sit in, that customer acquisition and membership management sort of layer, that in many cases renewable developers are accustomed to paying up to 20% of their total development costs. For some outside firm to come in and do that, to take that risk off their plate, right? That's a perfect opportunity for a local CCA organization to step in and play that role at a reduced rate in many cases, and then pass those savings or that value back into the community in the form of either rebates or lower rates for their consumers.
You've all talked about educating communities to participate in the CCA. How would a municipality, a small municipality, or even their climate smart community task force get that information out? What specifically can they tell the community? How would they do it?
I'll answer that. So our model is one where, in most cases, we don't charge the municipality for our outreach. Good Energy takes on the risk. And even if the CCA contract gets signed or not, in many cases we believe in the program. So, the way our model works, we put in the dollars to upfront and initiate the outreach. So, we have a whole marketing team that works on whether it's billboards, if there's permits allow it, or ordinances allow billboards, whether it's postcards, whether it's advertising, whether it's commercials, whether it's infographics. So we do mailings, and also obviously, and I'm sure my panelists here have done town hall meetings. There is an extensive outreach program that is mandated by the Public Service Commission in the order. So it has to be 60 days. That consists of some type of advertisement or meetings every week for those. It's a little general right now, but in Illinois, as an example, the statute is one where you actually have to pass it through a general election or a primary election, put it on the ballot. So Good Energy actually set up a ballot initiative committee, formulate, put together the turnkey solution. So we actually did grassroots campaigns. We went out to town hall meetings. So that's why we have a robust marketing team. And I know when we met with DPS staff, a few months ago, right before the order was actually finalized, we were big advocates of this community outreach. I think it's a necessary thing, and I said it before, it really insulates the boards and the mayors and the officials. So we have, a very, to answer your question, we have a very robust marketing program and work with the municipalities on the level of intensity, with what you want to see, whether you want to see local advertisement, town hall meetings. So we can do pretty much anything, and even develop websites for your community, FAQs. So we run the gamut. We have a whole marketing booklet that you guys can choose from. So any type of initiative. So that's how we handle it.
Yeah, and I think each community is really different. And I guess my experience is that face-to-face and that opportunity for citizens to come and bring their concerns and voice them and pick your brain as someone who understands this in a way that they don't. I think there's no substitute for that a billboard or a website can have, because your specific question getting answered in real time. I had a precious, that's cool that you had CCA signs. I was at a meeting the other night and I had 3 residents looking at one resident's bill and trying to help each other understand it and explain, what's time of use, what's day-night rate, and how would this work with the CCA, and what does this mean, and if I switch my usage, that doesn't happen. When does that happen in our society? It was really exciting to see. Maybe you guys think she's really a nerd. I am really a nerd, but when we're creating these forums for discussion that wouldn't otherwise happen in a community, and I think that's part of the education and outreach that I hope that every community will choose to employ.
Yeah, I'd like to add two clarifying things, just because I'm not sure if they're totally clear. So one is that we'd expect most, if not all, CCAs in New York State to hire an administrator. So it wouldn't necessarily be the local government who was responsible for everything. So that could be a nonprofit organization or one of the companies that's represented here today. And those people would help do all the work, basically. And the other is that as a kind of protection against a lack of education, or so Kelly mentioned earlier that the implementation plan for any CCA has to be approved by the Department of Public Service before it can go forward and go into an effect. And the education outreach plan would be a part of that. So, if that's severely lacking, then the DPS will let you know that, and you will have to improve that before you can go forward.
If I could just add to your point about the administrator. So you can hire an administrator, but you can also create your own program locally, your own institution, or in some places, your county might want to play that role as your CCA administrator. That's common in other states, or it's been done in other states where the county plays that role. So that's an option. I'll put that out there. And you should also know that there are tools. NYSERDA has a toolkit for CCA on its website. It has a draft law, a model, all kinds of implementation plan tools, all kinds of things, resources for you. So you should definitely check those out. But I would suggest, what size is your municipality?
About 3,500 people in the village.
Okay, and you're a climate smart community?
Yes.
And so, I think you should think about what you want your CCA to do, and then think about whether it makes sense to broaden the conversation beyond your municipality to other municipalities in your area. And if you can work together on an intermunicipal level, you're going to be more effective. You're going to combine your resources rather than each. We have no resources, right, as municipalities. My municipality is 6,000 people, small town. There are not a lot of resources there. But so you combine your resources and you draw on community resources as partners. As Glenn said, they always try part of their business model is to find a local partner to work with. But in our organization, and there are other organizations within our county that are working on energy issues, or it might even be, we have a NYSERDA Green Jobs, Green New York, an organization that does those programs, and they're a natural partner. Like, think about who the partners in the communities are that you can work with on this, and who would have the bandwidth and the resources to help reach into your communities and really deepen the education, because we are limited as municipalities. We can have public informational meetings and hearings and those kinds of things, which are really important, and having those discussions at town board meetings. But you want to do more than that, ideally.
And I'd highlight just a couple points that were already made to some extent, but I want to emphasize them. So one, the only way that the community is really going to know about this and actually take ownership of it is if they, like Louise is saying, is that they see it in the community. So you can think about cabling at the farmer's market or the local fall festival or anything. But there's a real person to answer questions, and that there are community groups that are really kind of spearheading that. Jen was mentioning, we always work with a local partner. That local partner is going to be doing that grassroots stuff in the community even when we're not around, right? So that conversation keeps going, and the communities have a resource to call, a phone number to call, and a person to actually meet with that can answer all these questions. And the second thing I would say is, picking up on Jen's point, is the intermunicipal organization. That's how you can often build momentum around these things. You get leaders, like we're doing today, right? You get leaders from different municipalities in the same room just to have a discussion, or just to have a workshop around how this actually works and what the process is. We try to do that in every group that we're working together, is really have these sort of somewhat regular meetings on the calendar to maintain that momentum, get the same people in the room, and invite new people in that room and really talk through these issues. What's going right, what's going wrong, that sort of thing.
I'd add that one idea, or just for the education outreach, is NYSERDA has had a lot of interaction recently with the New York Library Association, and they are very interested in making sustainability part of their mission, not just for their library buildings, but for New York State as a whole. And so I think they'd be a great partner going forward in any sort of education or outreach effort. And I think somehow I've gone without saying this. This is a really easy plug for reaching out to our clean energy community coordinators. This is part of their job, and what they're offering is support with these 10 high impact actions, and obviously community choice aggregation is one of them. So that's a free resource to reach out to.
Great point. The library is a great host of an event, because it's really sort of a whole solution, and we had some really energetic library meetings.
Robyn Reynolds has been a great help to our community. and she's already started preliminary talks with other towns around us that you were talking about, getting together smaller communities to create our own CCA program. And she's been very instrumental in that.
Great. I think we are done with our questions up here for our panel, but if anyone else has any more questions they'd like to ask us, please feel free.
Could you just repeat the New York State Public Library, they're doing what again?
They just approached our team at NYSERDA. I'm with the communities and local government team, and NYLA, the New York Library Association, is very interested in basically making sustainability something that the library promotes, and this is kind of an informal commitment at this point. They haven't received any grants or anything from NYSERDA, but I know that they are very interested in promoting clean energy and this sort of thing. So I just thought as part of education outreach and that sort of thing, that they would be a very willing partner from everything that I've heard.
Well, now it's on tape, so now it's
Yeah, it's real.
Like the southern end, we're part of the a library system in Glens Falls and Moreau, Queensbury. So that's part of that library, Central Library is part of the New York State. So through that library.
Right, and I can't speak for an individual library, perhaps,
Sure.
but I know that the state has been promoting it, and I actually attended their statewide librarian conclave, and it was good. So I think I wouldn't be surprised at all if they were on board.
How many of you are climate smart communities?
What do you mean by that? To be certified or?
No, just, you can just be registered. Okay. Because, I mean, that, it dovetails really nicely, and I know that the DEC climate folks are very excited about the sort of 2.0 model of CCA and really using it, as a way to increase local clean energy investments. So there's going to be, there are going to be more resources available, I think, over time from the different state agencies. And as I think someone mentioned, there's a working group that I think several of us are on at the state level with NYSERDA, and Kelly is on it, and DPS. Really, it's in the CCA order, the Public Service Commission's order, that this Clean Energy Advisory Council, which is ongoing, will examine how CCAs can be used to support energy efficiency programming. That's really so important to all of our communities. That's like the biggest potential in terms of reducing customer bills, and also just greening reducing carbon emissions. So I think that there will be more programs and opportunities coming from NYSERDA and elsewhere to support these programs.
You don't have to wait.
You don't have to. No, you shouldn't wait. You shouldn't wait. But I'm saying the opportunities are only going to grow.
Thank you.
Thank you for tolerating all my questions. And one more for Glenn. And maybe the gentleman on his right. But Glenn, you quantified I think a $2 million saving for 90,000 of your participants. Over what period of time?
It's really over the first 8 months of the program. So it launched in May.
So
May of 2006.
So
is
there, in other words, what I really liked about your presentation was the stress on the 1.0, as you call it. That's where people save money. I think that's their motive. And you all talk about customer education. I think when you're paying what you're paying for cable TV and cell phones, and you look at your electric and gas bill, you say, I don't care about this. But your idea was to save money. And I think the whole movement seems to be moving towards much more expensive, hard to quantify payback stuff. But if we focused on yours, what do you suppose you're going to save next 8 months?
Well, I'll say that despite the real interest both at the state level, the regulatory, down to the community level, our enthusiasm up here on this table in this room about all of the DER, the 2.0, the renewable opportunities that come from CCA, almost to a town or to a municipality, almost every municipality will say the same thing. We're not going to save money. It's basically a non-starter for us because there are, like Jen sits on a board, on a municipal board. Their interest, they have one job, right? That's to protect the interests of their residents. So they're very hesitant to get into something that they are not certain makes financial or economic sense from the get-go. So you can't always guarantee great big savings, right? The utility market, supply market does that, right? And if you have a fixed rate, it does that. So you're not always going to be below that utility rate. You hope that in most months you are. In Westchester, 7 out of the first 9 months we've been below the utility rate, but that's not a guarantee of future savings. So we've captured that $2 million so far. To answer your question, we don't know what the next 8 months are. Forecasts suggest the prices are going to go up in 2017, 2018, but we'll see, right? So the real opportunity is that when you have that contract in hand, capture that savings and have a way, both structurally in your contract and in the community, in your implementation plan and throughout the community, for an idea of what to do with it, right? For how to grow a local energy economy and not just simply capture some savings for 2 or 3 years and then let it slip out of your fingers.
mentioned a gentleman looking to build a project for some of his own use. Is he free to sell that power directly to a CCA, or in other words, does the CCA have to buy it through an ESCO, or
Right.
how does that work?
So, so New York, CCA in New York is a little different than it is in some other states. Like in California, CCAs are what are called load-serving entities, and they can enter into power procurement. They can do PPAs directly, purchase power, and they are doing that. They're actually supporting local renewable development by providing a market for that power over 20 years. They're not load-serving entities in New York, at least not at the present time. They enter into contracts. But there are a couple of things. First of all, there's community renewable energy, which is a different distributed energy, which is a different kind of program, and that's enabled in New York. And that is they're 2 megawatts or less. And that's the kind of project that we're looking to do with him. You can have a contract with an ESCO that currently, under the current framework, that that requires, you can try to require the ESCO to procure a percentage of the power from this local entity. So you could build that into your contract with the ESCO. We're also looking at, again, like this is longer term, but also looking at our CCA becoming a public ESCO, essentially, becoming a load-serving entity so that we can focus really seriously on procuring local resources and generating our own power, locally as they're doing in California.
Okay, everyone, well,